today, a voice can reach multitudes, while hands can touch but one person at a time. How a pioneering radio ministry found that it needs both to preach the gospel. This week, we take a closer look at a decades-old ministry that's learning some new tricks. HCJB, that stands for Heralding Christ Jesus' Blessings, has used radio to send the gospel across the globe for 75 years.
Wendy, but in recent years, HCJB has embraced new methods of radio ministry. And those methods, quite unexpectedly, led the ministry to pursue a whole new dimension of community outreach. Stanjita brings us the story of this evolving ministry.
For decades, HCJB Radio broadcast the gospel message to the world by shortwave from the Andes Mountains of Ecuador. But today, the ministry is riding the crest of a new wave of radio ministry. They call it radio planting. It's the process of providing local Christians with the equipment and training to start their own radio stations, and empowering them to develop gospel programming that's culturally appropriate and much more effective.
The transforming concept for HCJB World Radio is that we're going to let other people do radio. We had run and operated, our own things for so long, and to think of helping others do it and us not being in control. As you know, in the evangelical world, we want to control the theology, we want to control the salaries, all of those things. But still, you have to let go. And what we've seen is that God works in powerful ways. He's much more capable of producing fruit and knowing who the right people are.
Like this station in Kiev, Ukraine. Radio Emmanuel, a 500-watt FM station, is the Ukraine's first 24-hour Christian radio station. It's the result of more than 5 years of partnership between Emmanuel, a Kiev media ministry affiliated with the Christian Broadcasting Network, and HCJB Radio.
I think that God deliberately sent HCJB here with their great experience in their radio schools. Many of our staff received their first knowledge of radio in those schools.
In the days after it went on the air in 2005, Emmanuel received thousands of calls of support and gratitude for the gospel message. Similar stories are happening all over the world. Today, HCJB supports more than 300 radio stations in more than 100 countries in Latin America, Eurasia, the Middle East, Africa, and Asia Pacific. And they're broadcasting in more than 120 languages. Sometimes radio planting results in church planting. Take the case of this church planter on Sumba, Indonesia. For centuries, the people on this island practiced spirit worship. But that began to change when this ministry started a Christian radio station with HCJB. The church planter helped develop the programs. And he gave out dozens of pre-tuned radios fixed on the Christian station. Soon entire families started giving their lives to Christ, including a village chief and his 100-year-old mother, resulting in a new congregation with more than 60 members. But radio planting helped revolutionize HCJB in another way, by helping the ministry discover that it takes more than just voices to spread the gospel. It's shown them that it also takes hands. From the beginning, HCJB has had a healthcare ministry through its hospital and mobile health clinics in Ecuador. But when it started radio planting, the ministry stumbled upon an eye-opening phenomenon.
It was really interesting that as we planted radio stations, for example, in Africa, that in many of those places, a clinic would spring up 2 years later.
It happens because the stations are trying to bless their communities. And they found that one of the best ways is to broadcast information about healthcare, which in turn often leads to the establishment of a medical clinic. For one radio planter in a Muslim area of Africa, it opened the door to a better relationship with his neighbors.
He began to use the radio to help the community understand when the doctors and nurses would be arriving. And that turned the whole Muslim community around, who had been very antagonistic before, to be very positive, because they recognized that this pastor wanted to serve the community, and healthcare played a part in that.
Because of this powerful impact, HCJB Radio is putting more resources into its clinics.
Maybe radio was the voice that communicated the love of Christ, but hospital was certainly the hands that communicated the love of Christ. And we realized that God had given us a holistic ministry even without our necessarily planning it out that way.
Demonstrating that even a radio ministry sometimes has to use more than just words to show God's love. Stan Jeter, CBN News.
Thanks, Stan. And the ministry has taken on some new names to reflect its new direction. It's now called HCJB Global, with HCJB Voice representing the radio ministry and HCJB Hands for healthcare. You can listen to some of its radio broadcasts by linking to the ministry's website from our webpage at cwnews.org.